Good afternoon to you. Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack.com. Hurricane Outlook and Discussion Time. It's Saturday, the 26th day of September 2021. And we have a lot to talk about out there today. You know what the big story is? Hurricane Sam, Category 4, maybe Category 5. Lots of debate about that. That's been really interesting to watch over on Twitter, etc. But first, look at this. The old tropical weather outlook map. Very busy with, I don't even know what this is. Just some disturbance out in the subtropical Atlantic there. We had Teresa that was up here recently, and then now there's this other feature. Now, these are legit tropical waves down coming off of Africa, and these are seedlings here. If these don't develop out in this area, they're going to end up over here. They could cause trouble later on. I think one or two of these, both of them could develop and then, die out a little bit and then still end up over here. You just never know. And then, of course, we have Sam here knocking on the door of Cat 5 intensity. Very impressive. Wait till I show you a couple of animations of some people that were tweeting about Sam earlier today. Pretty remarkable what we're seeing. So let's take a look at the track map real quick. Looking really good now for our friends over here in the northeastern part of the Lesser Antilles. This is not going to be having any direct impacts on you at all, but as Sam goes by, it's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to be very intense, Category 3, 4, maybe 5 once in a while. It's going to stay very intense around this entire region, and that will eventually lead to these swells that come out from it, and that will impact the islands indirectly. Or maybe they are directly because Sam is causing them, but you get what I'm saying. You're not going to be within the circulation of this intense hurricane. It's not going to affect you. There's almost no scenario that I can see that suggests that Sam will be headed towards the leewards and windwards or whatever. It's just not happening. The pattern is not favorable for that kind of a track. So that's good. We still have to take into consideration our friends in Bermuda and perhaps up in Atlantic Canada, more specifically Newfoundland down the road. But that's beyond the 5-day time frame. It's got to slow down sometimes. So we do need to watch that. I'll explain that in the global model GFS look here in just a minute. So that's the track of Sam over the next few days. There's Bermuda. Whoops, right there. That's Bermuda. I was trying to draw the arrow. Let's just take that away and try again. There's Bermuda right there. And remember, Bermuda is not one island. It's made up of several islands. But anyway, we have to watch because that trajectory could take it up in the vicinity of Bermuda. And not only will Sam be intense, but it's also going to expand in its aerial coverage. And I can show you that represented really well in the GFS over here later on. We're not there yet, though. First, the satellite imagery for this afternoon. Again, some non-tropical mischief, whatever the heck that is. Gulf and Caribbean nice and clear for now, but this time down here, that time is coming. Once we get into early October, and I'll show you that at the end of today's discussion. But there's Sam with a tremendous area of upper level anticyclonic flow. Huge anticyclone in the upper levels of the atmosphere. A little bit of shear maybe over on the southwest side. It's kind of eroded just a little. But otherwise, Sam has this almost perfect inflow of air at all angles there, going counterclockwise down at the surface, pulling the air in towards that low pressure area. Very tight pressure gradient down there. It's the air pressure in the center is very low, in the low 940s probably lower than that by now. Honestly, we'll wait until recon gets out there. And then as you go out from there, the pressures rapidly go up in only a few short miles. And that gradient, the difference between pressure over distance, is really steep, kind of like a very steep hill. If it's a very gradual hill, the ball can roll down slowly but surely. If it's a steep hill, you get that sort of, and it goes off the edge of the cliff. That is Sam. So if you're far away from the eye, probably more than 50 miles, you really wouldn't know much was going on, just kind of some breezes and some squalls. But you get close to that core, 10 to 15 miles from that core, and it's a different story for you. So incredible upper level outflow of Sam down here in the main development region, right in the heart of it at the end of September, no less. Lots of ace points coming up for this, meaning that it's not only going to be intense, but it's going to last a long time. So this will be a very quality tropical cyclone that the Atlantic Basin has produced this year. And that's important as we look at the metrics of how the season stacks up from a meteorological and oceanographic perspective, how everything kind of aligned this year. The very warm sea surface temperatures, they're warmer than normal by a pretty good margin. The atmosphere is cooperating all through here. And it's just a real good thing, seriously, that this is not affecting land. It goes without saying, because this is intense. It's small, relatively, but it's pretty darn intense for sure. So more energy coming off Africa. We'll need to watch these impulses as they move across the Atlantic. And again, some of that energy may end up in the Caribbean down the road. So this is really, really neat. It really is. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here. The latest GOES satellites can detect lightning. And all these little yellow speckles that you see in here in the center, that is lightning in the core. Kind of rare to see that. It's not often, but this is ridiculous. That's so much lightning. And then there's lightning in these outer bands with the thunderstorms that are out there. But this is indicating tremendous instability and ice crystal formation to create these different static discharges is basically all it is static electricity on steroids. That's what lightning is. And that is really remarkable. In fact, let's see what was tweeted about it here from Kalen Patel. And you wonder, well, who is that? Well, someone who follows the weather. And they're up at the University of Wisconsin. So this is not just some nobody. Kalen knows exactly what he's talking about here. And I thought I would point this out. Remarkable. I love Twitter for this. A lot of negativity with social media, yes, but if you know what to look for, who to follow, you find some gems like this. And the lightning ongoing in the inner core there of Sam, as Kalen says here, it's nothing short of astonishing. Each one of these little specks in here, in this case white dots, is a single lightning bolt. And due to the way that it's called parallax, where you're looking at something from that angle, it doesn't all line up the right way. It's skewed from the satellite's perspective. It makes it look like it's off center, but it's right there in the core, and that is remarkable. You don't see that often in the technology that we have that can spot this. Once in a while you see lightning in the core, and it's intermittent. You go, oh, look at that, a little period of lightning. This is just constant, ongoing, minute after minute. Now we're talking about in the last 30 minutes just in this loop. Really, really incredible. NOAA out there doing some research missions into this, understanding the rapid intensification process, the atmosphere, the ocean. A really neat opportunity to do that without one of these things affecting land. Just incredible. So there's good old Sam out over the ocean, open ocean, not bothering anybody except any marine interests who are hopefully steering well clear of it. But look, this is what we've been talking about. Look at these warm anomalies all through here. Just the entire Atlantic as a whole. 98% of it looks to me, the North Atlantic here, at or above the long-term average. Just a little bit of an area from the cold wake of Larry still out there, starting to fill in a little. Sam's going to carve this up pretty nicely, as you'll see. And then you've got a little bit of cold anomalies right up here, just to the south of Newfoundland. But otherwise, the very warm North Atlantic. And then you've got this cold Pacific, relative to average, starting to really weigh in now. Not much shear in the Atlantic. The upward motion is focused in the Atlantic. The air is rising, lower than normal pressures there. Lots of latent heat available. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, it's just sinking. Lots of sinking air. That cold water relative to average. And in some cases, it is literally fairly cold. At least to me anyway. But these are anomalies. These are departures from the long-term average. And those cold anomalies, that big ribbon down here in the eastern Pacific, etc., that's leading to a lot of sinking motion through here. And I can show you that in a variety of ways. But this is going to lead to, I think, a very busy October for the Caribbean, which is warming. It's already warm. It's warming up even more. Yes, it's still warming. Even though we're getting to the later part, we're past the equinox here, right? And the fall has begun. The days are shorter, but the Caribbean is still getting warmer overall. The anomalies are against the norms. I mean, that's a better way to put it. And we're going to have a very busy October. I can almost guarantee it. You never guarantee anything in the weather until it's happening. Another really interesting tweet here from Tomer. Who is Tomer? I like to point out these people. Tomer's an atmospheric science PhD. Excuse me. All right. That's awesome. PhD student. And Tomer's over here, I think, in University of Oklahoma, OU, whatever you call it there. I believe. I mean, it says New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, etc. Anyway, Tomer tweeted this, that SAM's forecast to remain in a favorable environment for high intensity through Tuesday night with low shear, less than 10 knots. And just remember, real quick, shear is and in this case, the difference in wind speed with height. You want, if you're looking for a healthy tropical cyclone, you want everything moving in the same direction, so that those thunderstorms can go up without getting blown off in one direction or another, right? And that is what is happening with SAM. It's able to rise that motion up, get it all going straight up, and then at the upper levels of the atmosphere, it fans out in all directions there almost perfectly. It's not quite perfect on the southwest side, as I showed you, but darn close. And that's that low shear, less than 10 knots, and sea surface temperatures generally above 28 Celsius, and they gradually increase in terms of the upper ocean heat content. So the surface temperature is 28 Celsius, or about 82 Fahrenheit, but the upper ocean heat content itself starts to increase. It's down here where upper ocean heat content is pretty good in this area of the scale, but as SAM moves along, it's just going to go into warmer or higher ocean heat content values, and that means that warm water is not just at the surface here, but it extends deep. So SAM comes along and churns up the water, and it literally blows across the surface of that water so hard that it wicks it up right into the hurricane, almost like dust, if you will. If you could picture that, it takes that warm surface water and just evaporates it, and like, it's an incredible process. And we've only just begun to be able to see that in some of the video that I've been able to capture with these GoPro cameras out in front of these big hurricanes. You can see it pretty clearly in Michael. This is a whole story for another day. I'll have to show you sometime. And most recently, Ida off of Lake Pontchartrain. It's just the way the wind grabs just that top of the water and literally kind of pulls it right into the core. That's what these things do. And when they do that, and there's just more warm water underneath to replace that water that's getting whipped up so much in a frenzy, that is where you see these high ocean heat content values. And that is what we're going to see here with SAM. They're just going to increase. It's not necessarily that the water gets warmer. It's just that there's more warm water below the surface for SAM to whip up, and it almost has an unlimited supply. All right? So I told you a couple things here to watch. First, the track, and we'll look at this over the next 7 days or so. We'll go out to 7 days. Let's just run this out. 48, 72, 96, 120 to 168. So there's the track over the next 7 days. You see what happens. It even on the 12Z model here, this is the GFS, 850 millibars, 12Z. There's Bermuda right there. So on this particular run, at 138 hours out, SAM is comfortably east of Bermuda, if I may say so myself. Maybe Howard over there in Bermuda doesn't think it's so comfortable, but it's a pretty good margin on this run. We know how that can change. The other thing to note, look at where SAM is now. All right, so this is the initial, and look at that relatively small vorticity center. That's what this shows. And as we go out into time, watch what happens to that. Very important. Watch that black bullseye. It gets larger. It expands. So I think SAM will gradually level out and become a mature hurricane, 130, 140 miles per hour for a while. It'll expand the wind field and then get on up into the westerlies there, and it might dilly-dally around. I mean, this is so far out in time. But the next 5 to 6 days or so, important for Bermuda to say, obviously. And any deviation back to the west there could put Bermuda at 32 and almost 65 roughly in peril. Then you also notice, just for the sake of it, right, these systems coming across. Those are the areas that we see at the beginning of the discussion here, the yellow and the orange. That's these two characters, right? And they may literally be characters. You never know. So they try to come through and develop, especially that first one. Within just the next few days, the front runner that's yellow today, right? That's yellow on the graphical outlook. That could go on to develop, and that would be Victor, I believe. And then if this one develops over here, that would be Wanda. And that's it. We're out of names. And if we're out of names, hurricane season's over. We just close everything up and we go home, right? If only. No, we actually go to an auxiliary list, and the first name will be Adria, followed by Braylon. Believe it or not, Braylon's my daughter's name, just a different spelling. Won't that be interesting? So, I think we're going to run out of names before too long. Maybe before we end the month of September. Wouldn't that be something? So we got to watch Sam for Bermuda. We got to watch it for Canadian interest up there, Atlantic Canada. And then it will, I just want to point this out, once it gets about here, it'll definitely, with that bigger wind field, that'll be sending out some serious swells towards the east coast. And the water temperatures down here are still pretty pleasant. So if you are in the surfing realm, you're going to love it. Good surf coming from this. But it's also going to create some overwash probably, especially in the more vulnerable areas like the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We will watch this going forward. But Sam is almost a lock to not directly impact the lower 48. In other words, it's not going to make landfall in the United States. I and others are almost certain of that. Now, you notice we're out here. Let's just take this back out to day 7. At day 7, not much happening in the Caribbean, pretty much straight trade winds through here. But the modeling, this is the operational. The long-term modeling starting to suggest here, this is the CFS, the Climate Forecast System, out over the next several days, many days out, all the way to November 3rd, my birthday. How about that? I just noticed that on there. This goes all the way out to November 3rd, and this shows you the upward motion here. Let's go back where it fits in the panel there. So each of these are different increments of time. Let's use something that shows up, shall we? How about red? These are all different windows into the future. You see that? So this is day 5. There's day 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. 40 days out. Now, before you go, like, really 40-day fork, what are you doing? The larger puzzle pieces are easier to see, quote-unquote, 40 days out. Not the smaller details of the individual storms, tropical cyclones, winter storms, whatever, but these bigger puzzle pieces that take longer to move, they are easier to forecast. Not easy like as in, oh, it's definitely going to happen, but there's more reliability in this kind of forecasting of the larger pieces of the atmosphere. So I just want to make that clear. We're not talking about a 40-day forecast of whether or not it's going to rain in your backyard. That's not what this shows at all. But what it does show, here's the present. Again, 5 days, 10 days, 15, 20. During this time frame here, early October, this green comes into play in the Western Hemisphere. You understand that? That's South America there. You see all this green starting to show up. The Caribbean gets green. What is green? Green is the upward motion. All the while, and remember, these are each 5-day increments. Look at all this green that just sits here across where? The Indian Ocean and that vicinity, just cranking out the upward motion, making the tropical waves that come off Africa, and then they get out into this environment and they develop, and bam, you got trouble. And we're going to use up the names and then some. Almost certain of it. That's the CFS. This is the EPS ensemble mean from the Euro. My good friend Dylan sent this to me, and this shows very much a similar situation. Rising motion, all of this through here, generally over the Indian Ocean and Africa. Wind from 26 September all the way out here to about the 6th of November. Another model, and this is the EPS mean, the Ensemble Prediction System average here. This is the mean. And it shows rising motion all throughout this region, which is, again, Africa into the Indian Ocean, favoring tropical wave energy. And right now, not real favorable over this part of the Atlantic Basin, which is exactly where this is geographically. When this is right now. You understand that? So we move this out into time, and a little bit of Kelvin wave activity may be sneaking in, and then another down phase. But after about the, let's see, when is this? The 26th, 1st of October, the 6th of October, right in here, the first week on this area right through here, upward motion favored where? Right through here. And so that leads me to believe, and others that watch this closely, that October is going to be busy. And that shifts generally towards the west. We're talking the Caribbean, the southeast Gulf of Mexico, the southwest Atlantic. And we're going to get into that auxiliary alphabet, or list anyway, it's not necessarily an alphabet, of names sooner rather than later, and probably use several of them. So there you go. We got Sam, and we got October looming, and wow, busy, busy times ahead. All right, well, that is it from me. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I keep forgetting it's Sunday. We had a soccer game today with my son up in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and it felt like Saturday. But anyhow, it is Sunday. I will bid you a great afternoon. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I am Mark Sudduth. We'll talk again some more tomorrow.